is fine, nothing is ruined. I'm your host, Tristan. As always, the great show that we produce here. I'm so excited to be here to tell you that we're with me is Hassan to my...
That's me.
That's him right over there. You can't see. There we go. There. That's perfect. And we're going to here to talk to you about something. That's about monsters or some... I'm assuming either it's going to be either kaiju or it's going to be either Pokemon. Maybe Digimon.
Ah, you got on the second guess, buddy.
Oh, man. Okay, I have more guesses, though. Can I keep going?
Sure.
Ultimate Muscle?
You know what? I tried to rewatch that like a year and a half ago. It kind of bounced off it.
Oh, really? Okay, well, fair enough. How about Kaiju number 8? Have you started watching that at all? Huh?
Kind of find it a little generic. And
yeah, me too, actually.
Another one I
agree.
Dropped after a bit.
Yeah. How about, is there more, like a Super Sentai out there? Is that what we're talking about today?
There is. We might talk about that soon, but not today.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm fresh out of ideas. I think you said I already got it, but I can't remember what it was. So
it's Pokemon, your favorite thing.
Oh, okay. Well, you enjoy. You go ahead, and I'm just gonna.
No, Tristan. It's like when you do your review. All right, Tristan. Your top Gen 10, Gen 9 Pokemon, and your bottom Gen 9 Pokemon. Let's hear them.
Top Gen 9 is rubbish.
That is not even close to Gen 9.
Okay, what's Gen 9?
Gen 9's Paldea.
I'm not even sure what's in Paldea anymore. They've all kind of blended together.
Okay.
They've all just kind of blended into one big mishmash of Pokemons.
Because Trubbish is Gen 5.
Yeah.
So
okay.
It's like a decade ago now.
All right. Well, I'm 5 generations off then. So just basically whatever I say for Generation 5, make that like the equivalent in Generation 9 and 10.
I guess probably the closest thing to Trubbish in Gen 9 would be like Rabasca, which is a dung beetle Pokemon, because, like poop and garbage are probably the closest.
Yeah, that goes hand in hand, okay. And then, there's a Chandelier who's also like a motorcycle.
Yeah, Chandelure. He's great.
Is he Gen 9 or Gen 10?
No. Chandelure's Gen 5?
Also Gen 5? Awesome. So once again, the rules apply. Take whatever I say and move it up 5 generations.
It is Gen 5. Okay.
Also Bidoof. Anyway. And Dunsparce.
Closest thing to
fucking love Dunsparce.
Oh, God, you're so wrong. I think the closest thing to Chandelure is just kind of, they're both ghosts, they're both similar in shape in a way. Probably like a Bramblegast, which is a ghost tumbleweed.
Oh yeah, Bramblegast is pretty good. Yeah, I think he's a good Pokemon. Are we here to talk about anything specific Pokemon-wise, or just generally, or...
Well, Tristan, we're actually here to talk about very little of Gen 9, ironically, because we're actually here to talk about the new Pokemon anime series, Pokémon Horizons.
Holy crap, they did it. They made a new one.
Well, so they always make new ones, but this is a very special new one in that it's the first mainline series that doesn't feature Ash Ketchum, at least... as a main protagonist. We'll see if he shows up for cameos, but so far, he's not been in it.
I want like an old, grizzled war veteran Ash. He's got a mustache, and he uses
that's never going to happen.
Pikachu to open up cans of things for him because he has no hands now. He's all just hooks everywhere.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
No, all right.
No.
You sure?
I'm very sure.
I think I got a good premise happening.
No, it mostly just sounds like you've been watching too much Adventure Time.
I guess kind of, yeah. I haven't actually been, but all right, sure. Anyway, what about Pokemon
no.
Horizons?
So
Pokemon
Pokemon
Horizons.
We've gotten past Ash. Something that I have certainly said on this podcast, and a lot of the fan base has sort of echoed for a variety of reasons, where there's just a lot of stuff that, because they kept having Ash as the protagonist, was holding them back, and also stylistically they were kind of forced to continue certain things. So things like there would be a narrator, and I think I have mentioned this on the podcast. I forget if I either mentioned on the podcast or I've talked about it off podcast, definitely. But I tried to watch the beginning of the previous series, the last Ash one.
Yeah, sure.
Set Galar region, but almost immediately that opens up with the narrator, and it goes like, "Oh, what's this? Why, it's a Pichu, an electric mouse Pokemon."
You don't say.
Who, like, has known at the time probably 20 years, maybe longer, of like what a Pichu is. Just like, this is not for me. This is for kids, which is fine.
Yes.
And this show is certainly still primarily targeted at kids, but
I assume
good job of getting past some of those things. Or like Team Rocket with Jesse James Meowth. You know, they're very slapstick as villains. We've moved away from that, and so
what have we? Oh,
yes, they are not in this.
Well, I mean, it's fine. The Team Rocket's in
villains are known as the Explorers.
The Explorers. That's not so good.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird villain name, but they're also not officially. They don't consider themselves villains. We'll say they're sort of, you know, misguided fellows trying to do the right thing, but they take it to an extreme kind of situation, we'll say.
Okay, so, all right, okay, interesting.
Getting to what Horizons is, so in this show, we have two protagonists, which it tries to have two protagonists, is the way I will put it. So there's sort of a so far. So I am 28 episodes in because I'm only watching the dub. I think there's almost double that out in Japanese. Pokemon anime still terrible at coming out within a reasonable amount of time dubbed. I think it's still stuck in the 90s in a lot of way when it comes to anime and internationally adapting it.
Yeah, sure.
But we have who is our kind of real main protagonist, which is Liko. She is
Liko.
Yes, Liko.
So Liko.
She is roughly a 10-year-old girl. The show never says the age, but I mean,
that's usually where you start.
We are starting off. She does not yet have a partner Pokemon, so.
Yeah, I've always found it kind of just a quick aside. I've always found it a little like a bit of a tough pill to swallow that they are 10, just because like they're kind of tall.
They're not 10. They're definitely too mature for 10 as well.
Sure, that's fine too. But like, even like Ash is like, he's supposed to be 10 years old. It's like he's a little tall. I guess he could just had a growth spurt, but I don't know. Always felt like that there was a tight disparity. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, but Liko, young girl. She's actually at Academy in the Johto region initially, even though she comes from Paldea. Basically, what ends up happening is she went to this academy. She gets her partner Pokemon Sprigatito, and she has this glowy necklace. And this necklace turns out to be this Pokemon Terapagos, which is this mythical Pokemon from the Paldea region that allows other Pokemon to what is known as terastalize. Basically, they get this sort of crystal crown, and they can change their type. So a Pikachu can go from an electric type to a flying type. So while she's at school, the explorers show up, and they basically try to kidnap her and steal her pendant, and she gets rescued by the Rising Volt Tacklers, who they're this group that have this sort of dirigible style airship.
Ooh, dirigible.
Traveling around, and she decides to join them. And Lego's a more interesting character than I think Ash Ketchum ever was. Ash was always written rather simple. You know, he was, I wouldn't necessarily say like a goody two shoes, but he was sort of somewhat pure-hearted, always wanted to help a Pokemon in need, you know, would always dash in to be the sort of heroic, chivalrous character in a way.
I mean, it's kind of his calling card. I mean, Ash Ketchum is very, like, swashbuckly in a way, where he wants to go and be a hero. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, he's a very confident character, whereas Liko, on the other hand, she lacks confidence. She overthinks things, but she's a very caring person. But she also kind of has, to a certain extent, anxiety. Like, for example, when she gets aboard the Flying Olivine, I'd say probably the first 5 or 6 episodes, a lot of it is just about her kind of figuring out, what does she want to do with her life? What does she want to be, you know? And eventually she kind of works up this courage to ask
Shanghai.
No, but she basically works up this courage to ask the Rising Vault Tacklers, I want to join you guys. Can I become one too? And there's just feels like there's more depth to her character. I think that was the thing, you know, to me, the Ash era of the Pokemon anime, there are moments that it certainly tackles emotional and more adult elements and themes. You know, there are moments where it faces death, where it, you know, faces loss. Ash, you know, freeing his Pokemon, saying goodbye to them, those kind of things. It has those moments, but overall, it was definitely just written more as like a Saturday morning cartoon in a more light-hearted, you know, less emotionally intense show. This show, it's a little more mature in that way. A little, I wouldn't necessarily say more adult, just it's not as Saturday morning cartoon. It wants to have more depth to its characters. Another example where I think Liko is far more interesting is there is this online persona known as Nido Thing. So there's a Pokemon Nido King, so it is playing off of that. And it is this person who has this Nido King Nido Ran female outfit, I believe is what it is. But they're like this, you know, play on a YouTuber where they'll constantly show up like, yo, you don't think here. I'm here to teach you about catching Pokemon.
Oh, no.
Did you know that if you inflict a status on a Pokemon, like poison or sleep, it makes them easier to capture? And Liko is just this big fan. You know, she fangirls over Nido Thing, and she's constantly like, oh no, I need to get back to my room so I can watch the Nido Thing broadcast. And we as the audience...
He's streaming! They don't record these.
He actually.
So she's streaming.
We as the audience very quickly realized that Nido Thing is this other member of the Rising Vault Tacklers on the ship, Dot. And Dot's thing is that, you know, she's very brisk with other characters. She doesn't really open up easily to people. She, you know, basically spends all of her time in her room. She's sort of like a neat / hikikomori in some ways that I think Japan is using, where, you know, she likes to be a shut-in in her room. She doesn't care about eating. She's just like, food's just for sustenance. Who cares about flavor? Whatever. But she eventually starts to, you know, open up, build these relationships with Dot and the other with Liko and Roy and the other members of the Rising Vault Tacklers. I will say, Dot has maybe like my favorite design thing Pokemon has ever done with a human character, where
I see what you're saying.
Her hair, and her initial outfit has a bunch of sort of Pokemon motifs to it. Like she wears slippers that are Uglies, I think
Snorlaxes.
they are. No, I don't think her slippers are Snorlaxes.
I'm seeing a picture of her, and she has Snorlax slippers.
Are they? Okay. There's definitely part of her outfit that's a Ugly. I think she has like a Liepard sweater. But my favorite thing is her hair is meant to look like a Cherim. Yes, Cherim. And what that means is Cherim has two forms. It has its overcast form, where it is I looked up the word. It's like photosynthetic, I think is the term. Basically flowers that they will close in the night and then open up during the day. And she does that with her hair. So her hair will be down, but when she goes to battle, her hair just goes basically back and reveals her face, similar to Cherim when it goes into its sunlight form, I think is the term. I just love that they built this like transformation into her that mirrors a human. It's very funny and stupid, but it's a neat design thing that I enjoy.
Yeah.
Now our other main protagonist is Roy. Roy is a lot like Ash. He's not the most intelligent, we'll say. Not dumb, but just doesn't think things through, right? He's going to charge in and just try and, solve it through guts and moxie. And he's also, he's somebody who is determined to help and solve an issue no matter what. So, for example, his second Pokemon that he gets, which is known as a Wattrel, which is this electric bird Pokemon, he comes across one that it seems like it's struggling to fly. So he does everything he can up to the last minute of their ship is about to leave to help this Wattrel figure out to fly. And so, of course, the Wattrel decides to go with him and join his party. But he's very much that Ash-like Pokemon. And the reason that he's a lesser main protagonist to me is that the overarching plot of this show is that Lico's pendant is this Terapagos, and eventually what we learn is that Terapagos, along with these other Pokemon, were the partners of this historical figure called God, he's not called the Explorer. He was called I'm blanking so bad on this now.
Come on, you can do it.
The Adventurers? God, why can't I figure out his name and it is not showing on this wiki? That's gonna kill me. I'm just gonna call him the Explorer.
Yeah, sure.
So he's this historical figure, and so he had this Terapagos, and eventually that becomes Lico's goal, is they want to kind of trace his footsteps, figure out this basically mystical area that he went to. They want to find it by getting his 6 partner Pokemon. Roy's story initially is his grandfather gives him this quote-unquote ancient Pokeball.
What's inside of it?
I don't know why they call them ancient when it's implied that it's the Ancient Adventurer. It's only like 200 years ago, which that's not ancient.
Not really ancient, I guess, yeah.
Whatever. It's just funny. It's like, that's maybe not the right word, but okay. So his grandfather kind of gives it, and eventually when he meets Lico, her pendant reacts to it, and out of this Pokeball comes a black Rayquaza, which is just the shiny version of a Rayquaza.
Okay.
Although Rayquaza is a legendary Pokemon, so very rare and special.
Yeah, I wouldn't need a shiny version.
His thing then becomes, he wants to go off and find and sort of battle and follow the footsteps of this adventurer by finding the black Rayquaza and getting it back in its Pokeball.
Sure.
And so he kind of gets undermined by the fact that Liko ends up getting way more of the story of this ancient adventurer. Like, it's pretty clear that she's probably the descendant of this ancient adventurer. These ancient Pokeballs, she ends up getting 2 others already. So she got a giant Arboliva, which that is not a legendary. It's just that it's giant, as well as a Galarian Moltres. She ends up getting both of these, while Roy just has his empty one that the black Rayquaza came out of. She also has Terapagos. The explorers are very specifically constantly after her. And so I wish that they had done more to distinguish Roy's goals and what's driving him forward from Liko's, because even though they're supposed to be dual protagonists, it very quickly does not feel that way. It feels like Liko is the main protagonist and Roy is kind of more of a support character, very similar to Dot in that way, where like Dot doesn't get called one of the protagonists, she just gets called a support character, but Roy feels only at the same level as her. And again, he's not as interesting a character. He's a lot more, just less emotional depth to explore with him, at least so far. Maybe we'll get there, but I kind of wish he just wasn't kind of like, you know, a bit of a gung-ho fool in a way. If I was, you know, and I imagine this is hindsight being 2020, it's very easy for me to say this when we're this far in, but if I was writing this, I would have preferred that they have Roy kind of take on the role of the, hey, I want to go off and fight the gym leaders, and my goal is related to becoming, you know, a great Pokemon trainer or a powerful Pokemon trainer.
Okay.
You know, if it was like Liko's story is she wants to figure out what is happening with the ancient adventurer, and so Roy's gonna team up with her, and he's like, hey, you're gonna need somebody who can, you know, battle these powerful Pokemon, and I want that to be me, right? You basically, Liko, you can go and be I am blanking on the name, but the monk from Journey to the West, and I'm going to be Sun Wukong. Like, great, perfect, do that. But they didn't. And
well, it's dumb. They should just look. They do that with everything else. No reason why you wouldn't put Journey to the West.
Right.
Whatever. I guess.
It's also weird because so far we've met 2 gym leaders. One of them is Paldean. One of them is actually from Galar, and that's actually one of the weirder things about the show too. Is that it's not the first one to do this. The last series with Ash also did this, where even though it was kind of supposed to take place in Gen 8, a lot of it didn't, and a lot of it wasn't. Gen 8 wasn't focused on Gen 8 Pokemon. This is like that too, where at least so far, a lot of this show has not taken place in Paldea. It's not necessarily super focused on Paldea Pokemon. And I actually like that. It makes the world of Pokemon feel bigger and more connected, where like that was always something that felt a little bit weird with Pokemon, is that, you know, hey, if we get to things like, you know, Gen 4, Gen 5, you know, hey, Ash is going to go off to Sinnoh, and there's all of a sudden just stuff where it's like, oh, he's meeting this Pokemon, and we have to like treat it as if it's the first time anyone's ever heard of this Pokemon. Yeah. And that's just a little bit weird, right? That, hey,
a little bit.
That doesn't make sense in this world. They should have known about these Pokemon for thousands of years.
They're common enough creatures. I mean, even the ones that are rare are common enough creatures. They would have heard of them.
Right. Yeah. It's just weird. And so
it is weird, but yeah.
That this immediately has us traveling to different regions and has a lot more of a, hey, here's Pokemon from various regions, involved. There's a good number of Paldea Pokemon very early on. We have our 3 starters. So Roy has a Fuecoco, Liko has a Sprigatito, and Dot has a Quaxley.
The Donald Trump duck.
Yeah, I mean...
we love him anyway, don't worry about it.
Zangoose?
Zangoose.
Pretty sure it's Zangoose.
Zangoose has like the actual Donald Trump look. But, yeah, Quaxley has like that comb over Donald Trump look as well.
No, it's not Zangoose. It's, Zangoose is, that's the Gen 3 one. I am blanking on what that one is called that has the comb over. I never liked that Pokemon, which is why I can't remember its name.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure it starts with Z, though. But, yes, Quaxley is the fine, and that becomes an ugly Pokemon. Just, hate its final design. Quackavall, I believe is how it's pronounced.
Quackavall.
Just not a fan of it. It's supposed to be this, like, duck flamenco dancer, but it's got, like, toes, and it's just upsetting in ways that don't like it. Hoping that one doesn't evolve.
Jeez.
But there are a good number of Paldea Pokemon that show up.
Cool.
And actually getting into evolutions, it is a bit of a slower pace in that respect too. Sorry, I just forgot the tangent I was on around the gym trainers. So we meet those 2 gym trainers, and Roy and Liko do sort of fight them, but they don't get gym badges out of it. Their goal isn't to defeat the gym leader to prove themselves. The first one, they just fight Bracius because he won't reveal a piece of information that they want unless they beat him.
Okay. A stodgy bastard.
It's sort of a, hey, you'll need to go into this forest, so hey, if you can beat me, you'll prove it. And then the second is against Kabu, and it's sort of a similar situation, but they're not getting gym badges. They do want to improve as trainers, but their goals are not to become great trainers, and I think that's just a little bit of a missed opportunity in this show. I think it would have been nice to have somebody have that goal and to highlight a rather large aspect of the Pokemon world. Now, admittedly,
it seems like a pretty decent B plot, if anything. So,
admittedly, we've had 20 plus years of Ash doing that. So, in some ways, hey, we've had our fill elsewhere.
It's B plot. It's okay.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is if they'd made it at least as a B plot, I think it would have helped. But then, going back to what I was about to say, is where the show is also a little bit slower paced. We're 28 episodes in.
Yeah.
Liko has 2 Pokemon. She has her Sprigatito and a Hatena.
Okay.
It's a Gen 8 Pokemon.
Sure.
Roy has his Fuecoco and his Watrel. And Dot just has Quaxley. And then there's a variety of other Pokemon on the Great Olivine, belonging to many of the other members. But so far, that's it. So they've only caught basically the beginner, 1 additional Pokemon. None of their Pokemon have evolved so far. And I did look back at some of the Ash seasons just to try and make sure I wasn't crazy. But by episode 28, in a lot of them, Ash had... It's a bit hard to judge because Ash was very much the primary protagonist, and his goal was to become this great trainer. But typically, he had 4 to 5 Pokemon, and at least one of them had evolved by this point. So we are moving a little bit slower. I'm also not surprised because the speculation out of the Pokemon community is that the next generation is not going to be coming next year. They'll want to wait until 2026 so that they can make Gen 8 the 30-year anniversary. So they're probably trying to stretch out Horizons a little bit longer.
Yeah,
than,
I'd say so.
Past ones want to go a little bit longer. So it kind of makes sense that they're slowing it down a little bit, moving more slowly.
It does.
We'll say it, visually, I really like the way that this show looks. It's not
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
drastically different from previous
The previous series. Yeah.
Um,
I can see. I can
what
tell.
yeah, what I would say is, like, in particular, if you look at Ash compared to either Roy or Liko, Ash just looks more sort of like smooth and rounded, cartoony.
Yeah, he does.
And like he's got those sort of I don't even know what you would call them exactly, the wavy lines, I guess, on his cheeks, which again they feel very kind of like kids Saturday morning cartoon character look. And I didn't hate the look at all, but I do think that this show has a little bit more of a sharper edge to it. I think the character designs are also... I really like a lot of the character designs. They have almost a... like sleekness to them compared to...
Yeah, sleek makes sense.
a lot of the Ash era, whereas, like, it's not drastically different, especially if you look at Roy, where it's like t-shirt and a vest. That is very Ash look. But there's just something about, like, if I think about another Rising Volt tackler, Freed, where he's got sort of a more bomber jacket style look, and the characters just look a little bit more, for lack of a better term, but like shonen battle anime, they kind of have that more look of, hey, these are characters that are going off on an adventure, right? They look more designed for action than Ash
a little
and
more
his
rugged
compadres ever felt like it. Yeah, a little more rugged, a little more intent to what they're trying to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And like action, really good. The Pokemon battles,
cool.
They're still sometimes very abstract, and they definitely still have that very silly, like, oh, I'm gonna order my Pokemon to use this attack, and they're gonna be able to use it in a way that you're just like, that's dumb, and not how that attack can work at all.
How it's supposed to be Mew?
It's going to use Leafage, which shoots out a bunch of leaves, but it's going to use it to propel itself. You're like, okay, sure, I guess you can do that. It still has that, but the actual just visuals of the fights are really good, and it has gotten into the actual video game battle mechanic element of it. It's done some of that more interestingly than some of the past series has. So, for example, at one point, Freed is fighting a Methio, which is quite the name.
Methio.
No, a Methio.
A Methio.
Yeah.
I have one Methio.
So a Methio is using a Cerulege, which is it's this real Mega Man Battle Network looking Pokemon. It's this ghost Pokemon with these fire swords for hands.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I really like Cerulege. That is fighting his Charizard, and his Charizard lands this hit. He's like, haha, you fool, you activated my Pokemon's ability, Weak Armor, which makes it really fast. And
Weak Armor? Okay.
Yeah, it's literally an ability that if your Pokemon takes I forget if it has to be a physical type attack, but if it takes it, its defense gets lowered, but its speed soars up. So then his Cerulege is just, moving around hyper fast, just whacking Freed's Charizard. He's really struggling. Then he's like, all right, I'm going to terrestrialize it into a dark type because dark is effective against ghost. And it's just kind of from the word go, it's just a lot smarter about that stuff. Whereas,
cool.
With
these days,
basically each of the Ash seasons, or I shouldn't say seasons because certain regions would span multiple seasons, but with each region, we'd kind of have to reset things, and it wasn't quite as bad as like Ash having to learn that fire type Pokemon are weak against water type.
Oh, Ash,
we would
moron.
reset things, and we'd kind of have to like go back to real rookie trainer stuff and learning a lot of this stuff from scratch again. That was annoying, and so it's nice to have those support characters around Roy, Liko, and Dot who are smarter, or the villains that they're fighting. Just they're way smarter about things. They're also way more evil than most of the villains that Ash fought. Occasionally, they would get into some more like evil, nefarious groups. But
I see.
Like Team Rocket was always there, and most of the villains that he fought were a little bit goofy.
Typically,
there's an episode where one of the, I forget what they call themselves, I'm just gonna call them the generals of the explorers. He uses I think it's a Behem, which is this UFO-looking Pokemon, to hypnotize Liko into forgetting a bunch of stuff, and then just like yoinks her pendant. He's like, "Ha ha! This is mine now, sucker!" Which is just real messed up and dark. And I like that the villains are willing to be far more evil and villainous. They're more willing to just like blow up I shouldn't say blow up, but have their Pokemon destroy these buildings, or at one point when I believe it's the same episode when they have hypnotized Liko, they send a bunch of electric Pokemon to create interference so they can't contact Liko. There's more, hey, they're strategizing things, as opposed to like Team Rocket, who 9% of the time they were doing the Sunday morning equivalent of, we dug a hole and scattered leaves on top of it, and then the twerp's gonna fall into it.
Oh, man. Well, too bad we've dug this pit. Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Gotcha. There's one thing I'll call it a tentative complaint about it, which is that it feels like the writers want to create some kind of a romance between Liko and Dot.
Sure.
But that because it's a kid's show, a lot of the censoring stuff, yada yada, we can't go all the way. So they're doing that just like super light thing where you could read it that way if you want, but it's, we're not ever actually going to go there. It's just very like, well, no, you're just reading into it. We never intended it to be that way. They're just friends and care for each other.
Right.
Yeah. So like, we'll see. It's why it's a tentative complaint. Maybe they do go there. Maybe they slightly move away from that, and then I feel fine about it. But it's sort of this is how they're constantly going to write this, and then they just never actually commit. It's going to feel just very cowardly and disappointing. Now, getting into some of the stuff that we do know about, because again, I've watched the dub. I'm 28 episodes in, but we do know some things in the future that happen, thanks to the actual international sub-release. So, interestingly, Liko actually evolves her Sprigatito, which I was very much not expecting. And maybe that's just all those years of Ash and his Pikachu, where I just got so used to the idea of like, well, no, they're never going to let the character evolve their first partner Pokemon. That'll never happen. So Liko evolving her Sprigatito, I think, is very interesting and just does reinforce that element of this show where it feels more mature, it feels more willing to do things differently than past and have those moments. And so I'll definitely be interested to see if sort of her relationship to her Pokemon kind of evolves and changes as a result. Because like Sprigatito is quite literally cat-sized. It's this big. It likes to sit in her lap or jump up on her shoulder and nuzzle her and stuff. The evolved form of Sprigatito, I forget the name of its second stage, but it becomes anthropomorphized and it is human-sized. So it can't. I don't expect it to start lying in her lap or trying to jump up on her shoulder.
I mean,
and
it might
nuzzle
still
her. It'd be a little weird.
Do you ever see like a really big dog that still thinks it's a puppy? Kind of like that, you know?
Yeah, no, they could
do that. They could do that.
That would be funny.
Yeah.
It's just I would imagine that they're Florigato. That's what it's called. Is in flower cat.
Yeah, I get it. That's not. Sounds like a disease. Anyway, go on.
What you hate Spanish? Is that what this is? You think Spanish sounds like a disease?
Well, no. When you're buying two words like that together.
Wow, I can't believe you would say that, Tristan.
Also, Spanish flu. I'm coming for you, Spain.
How her relationship evolves. I hope they don't evolve Fuecoco. I love Royce Fuecoco. He's just a big. He's just a tiny, lovable idiot Pokemon who just wants to eat, and he thinks he's a big Pokemon. So, for example,
he's got Wee Man syndrome.
Yeah, so the engine of the Great Olivine is basically fire-powered. So there's one point where Charizard is breathing into it, and then Fuecoco is like, I'm going to help. And they're like, yeah, you're doing it, Fuecoco.
Good job, little guy. Here's a participation medal.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
We also know that, mention that Lico's from Paldea. Gen 9 is the Paldea region. That is supposed to be an amalgamation of Spain and Portugal. And I forget the name of it, but the main city in Paldea is basically based off of the famous church that was built, the Sagrada something. I'm blanking on the name, and I don't want to try and look it up on this wiki. Cause,
I know the one. I don't want to say either because I'm probably wrong.
Yeah, but we do know, so that in the games, that was a big point of the games, was you went to Naranja Academy, you kind of had to attend these classes, they're the ones that send you out to go to the gyms. We do know that Liko Roy Dot ended up going to that academy. I don't think Liko joins the academy because she was already a student in the Johto region. But I believe that both Roy and Dot join it, and I'll be interested to see what they do with that. I think in this show, it would probably be not only difficult, but it would just feel very dissonant to all of a sudden go, yeah, here's just multiple episodes, and they're just taking place as school lessons inside this school. Here's just characters sitting down.
I guess that's your point. Yeah.
Being taught to,
just big old exposition dump bullshit. Nothing really happening. I see what you're saying.
Not even like exposition dump, but like Pokemon is very much in the anime, about characters constantly trekking across the land, encountering new people, going to gyms, encountering new Pokemon. And so the idea of instead it being, not about trekking across the land and seeing these things and taking place within sort of a singular building and almost not like slice of life per se, but more of, hey, we're going back to this same place all the time, and we can still have Pokemon battling because it's still a Pokemon school, but I'll be interested to see what that arc is like when we get there, what that means. I'd also like to see them bring in more of the Paldea characters from the games, which hopefully that will happen, and we get to see just some of those fun characters from the games. I don't think we'll get to We have seen one of the main characters from the game, Nimona. So I don't know if they're going to bring in the others. Like, it would be a bit weird if the character Arvin is there, who in the games, his parent was the professor, as in like the Pokemon professor, not a professor at the school. But they were actually dead, and they were in this Ground Zero area. It was a whole thing.
Gotcha.
And I can't imagine the anime wants to bring those parts in and try and tie it into everything that's happening with Liko and Roy.
I mean, they could try.
Tacklers.
Could try it.
They could try. That would be interesting, but it would be tough to swallow if they did that.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested. I hope they flesh out some of the towns more. I think that was certainly a criticism of the games, that they didn't do a great job of making the towns were interesting, but then there's just not a whole lot that you can sort of learn about them or interact with in them. So I wouldn't mind seeing them spend a little bit more time in each town and kind of flesh that out with that respect.
Yeah.
And then just getting into long term, I don't imagine Pokemon Horizons is the Ash replacement. And what I mean by that is these characters, Liko and Roy, have pretty clear, defined, and story-focused goals.
Yeah,
where it is about tracing the footsteps of this ancient adventurer, solving that. That doesn't feel like something that you can stretch out for 20 years like you did Ash, where his goal was just become a Pokemon master, which that actually was never even fully defined what a Pokemon master was. It was always kind of interpreted as a champion.
Very vague term. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, you could always stretch it out, and that was also kind of easy to make it so that Ash didn't accomplish that, because you could just go, oh, he's going to challenge this league, and oh, he lost this league, on to the next one, right? It was relatively easy.
Yeah, I guess so. It just keeps going.
Doesn't really work in the story, right? We can't. It can't get to. Hey, Roy and Liko, they got the Ancient Adventurers 6-party Pokemon, and they figured out a path to this secret land.
No.
And then they get there, and there's a book here, and they open it, and he's like, haha, I had 6 other Pokemon with me, and this is...
Damn it.
This is just the land where I hid this book. The real land is when you get the other, right? Like, that's going to suck. It's going to hate. So, it does feel like this is probably just for sort of this story, this region, and that when we get to Gen 10, we are again going to get, I would assume, a completely new batch of cast members. I could tentatively see what happens is, hey, Roy and Liko, and probably even Dot, hey, their stories are done. They're good. They're gonna go off, or they're gonna stay behind, whatever, and not leave the Rising Vault Tacklers, but hey, we'll always be Rising Vault Tacklers, even if we're not with you, but we're not continuing on this next leg. And I could see maybe that is the connecting thread, is, hey, the Great Olivine and the Rising Vault Tacklers, those crew members have freed, and Captain Pikachu, and Punk Nurse Joy.
Punk Nurse Joy.
Yeah. It's literally Punk Nurse Joy. They don't officially say she's a Nurse Joy, but she's a Nurse Joy. She has pink hair. She has a Chansey partner. She talks about all of her sisters being working at Poke Centers.
I see.
But she's got a bunch of piercings and wears a leather jacket and stuff. She is literally Punk Nurse Joy.
Oh yeah, I am into this design. Okay, yep.
Yeah. No, she's good. But I could see that this is what becomes. Maybe it's just two series, maybe it's multiple, but that, hey, the idea of the Rising Vault Tacklers is what becomes this ongoing story, and that they go off on additional adventures and they find the new protagonists, etc., etc. Maybe not. Maybe it is completely new. We dump them, but I will be very interested to see if Pokemon ever tries to go back to an Ash-like scenario of, hey, we can just keep the story going with this set of characters indefinitely. You know, hey, the goal of these characters, it's not just going to be contained to one region. It's something we keep it going. Or if they are now going to be a little bit more kind of anthology seasons in a way. And it's unclear if this series Horizons is directly connected to the past Ash stuff. Where I am so far, I haven't noticed any specific like Ash related characters or things where it's like, well, if this character's here, that means that Ash also has to be out there somewhere doing his thing. I wouldn't be shocked if Ash made a cameo, or, you know, a Professor Oak or somebody like that they just gently tied it in together, because
I mean, that's pretty cool. Yep.
Nothing about this series either is, you know, dramatically different enough that you go, yeah, no, these two things can't be tied together. That'd be weird. That doesn't make sense. It totally has to be its own separate thing.
Yeah, again, I do want to stick a more like adult Ash Ketchum kind of thing. I don't need the Grizzle War veteran. I do want to see that, but
they will never make him an adult, because
they're
always going to want him in his back pocket of people like Horizons. It is definitely doing well, both like critically and viewership numbers.
Make Ash a Grizzle War veteran.
Hey, what happens if, you know, whatever they try after Horizons, right? If they dump those, the next Pokemon series, they get into it and they're like, oh man, people are not into this protagonist. They're not like this. And they're just, you know, bring Ash back. Bring her back. Ash is back, baby. He's help. Because that's actually what happened in the Generation 3, is that they introduced this protagonist, May.
Oh, May was the first. Yeah.
What was supposed to happen initially was that,
May.
This could be hearsay. It could be apocryphal.
Yeah.
But my understanding of it is that May was kind of supposed to be the true lead, and Ash was supposed to be a little bit more of this like mentor figure to her, but that the reception was still very much people favoring Ash and Pikachu in that.
It's familiar,
so Ash
I
just
get it.
Kind of took over and became like, no, he's still the protagonist, and they just got stuck with that. And so,
I mean, to be fair, Pokemon in a way has this like cozy nature to it, you know, where like you don't necessarily want anything to change too greatly. I think that like Pokemon Horizons, the way it looks in general, still maintains that like kind of like that cozy air to it that the original show did.
Oh, absolutely.
And what Pokemon in general has. So I can see why people would gravitate towards, you know, we don't necessarily want Ash to be replaced. This new character's fine, but it's not Ash Ketchum.
Yeah, and I don't think you'll ever see him as an adult.
Probably not.
I will be shocked if they ever go. I think the only way you ever see him as an adult is if they do some sort of like, oh, we're gonna give you a like peek in the future. Is it canonical? It's just a future that could be. But I don't think you're ever gonna
little Elseworlds.
Ash shows up and he's
Days of Future Past Ash. Days of Future Past Ash. Hell yeah! He's got a cybernetic arm and one like really bad eye, and then he has telekinetic powers, but that's holding back the Genophage. He's got guns and it belts everywhere.
Ash has already had sort of telekinetic powers.
Okay, well, it's got held back to Genophage, so there you go.
Like the Krogan Genophage?
Sort of. It's I think it's the Technophage.
Sick.
I think it's the Technophage.
Yeah, they should put Rex Erdnot in Pokemon.
Oh, yes, they should. I agree. Speaking of cozy atmospheres, Rex Erdnot.
Yeah.
Coziest man alive.
No, unfortunately, you're never going to get your dream as well. I'm going to plant that in the ground and confidently say that.
I will dig it back up and make fan art of it.
Yeah, but just to wrap it up, I really like Horizons. I think it's a fantastic change and shuffling of things while still, in many ways, still being Pokemon. You know, I think
it seems pretty cool.
Somebody who's like me that found a lot of the later Ash stuff just, not for us, not for adults, very kid focused, not as well written as you wished. Give Horizons a chance. I think it's well worth it so far. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing where the show goes and the ways that it continues to change and adapt and evolve what a Pokemon mainline anime can be. Like, we've seen some of the things that this show has done before in some of those shorts, like Twilight Wings and Paldea Winds, Pokemon Origins. There have been official Pokemon things like this, but they've been much shorter. And I've really been enjoying it. And yeah, that's all I have to say about this. So, Tristan, why don't you tell us the ranking of all 1,018 Pokemon that you have?
Okay. Number 1, Dunsparce.
All right, podcast over. Tell people where to find us.
That's just the easy way out.
Never doing this again.
Yes. Yes, it's the easy way out. I can take it every time. Anyway, you should go to our Twitter pages at EIFNAR. I'm still going to call it Twitter. I don't care what Elon Musk says. It's Twitter.
We'll call it X when he stops dead naming his transgender child.
Yes, actually, you know what? I'll make a deal, Elon. Yeah, I'll call it X for once if you do that. You piece of garbage.
He's not going to, though.
Yeah. You know, Elon Musk. Anyway, you just go to our iTunes, Spotify, use your podcatcher to catch your podcast. Where are we going to go? Rank the podcast wherever you want. I like to give a podcast. I would give my podcast, specifically ours, 2 out of 10. Just, but hey, that's algorithm, baby. Just go to our YouTube page, and there's a button somewhere here, or possibly over there, up top. I don't. Depends when you're. I'm gonna point over here as well. It can move to the left. It can move to the right. I don't know. There's a button somewhere. You should click that button. That does stuff. I don't really care which button you press. It all somehow feeds the algorithm, whether it is a dislike button or the like button. It seems.
It's like the White Stripe song. All the kids still love, right? Another button to butt.
The hardest button to button. Yeah.
all the kids still sing that, right? We're hip.
Yeah, that one. Oh, man. Anyway, press the button. Join the. I don't know if our join thing is active or not. I don't really honestly care enough to activate it. If it is, great, cool. And if not, well, just subscribe or something. I don't give a crap. Or just watch the show and share it with your friends. That's the main thing. Share it with your friends as if it is a Pokemon.
And shout out Tristan about why Dunsparce sucks.
I mean, he's a little cutie. It's great. Look at him.
Terrible.
He's the greatest Pokemon in the world.
Can't believe they gave him an evolution.
Number 1. My books. No, okay. To be fair, Dunsparce is not number 1 in my books. It's probably still. I don't know. That's a good question. Actually, I've never really answered that question of which is my actual
Next week,
favorite.
we're going to have ranking of Pokemon, and Tristan's going to have to figure it out.
Nah, it's Simpsons again. Maybe we'll get back to you next week. Who knows? I don't know. I'm partial to Ghastly. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Gengar.
Yeah.
I'll say
Gengar's
that.
great too. Yeah. I like to be some ghost Pokemon. Mostly ghost Pokemon. Yeah. Anyway, you should go to our friends at DJDing.com. That's Guy Does Our Music, DJDing.com. You should throw a ball at him and catch him a little ball, and then basically make him your Pokemon slave and leave him in Bill's PC for the rest of his life.
I do not sign up. Do not do that to humans. That's illegal and a crime.
I don't see anybody making that illegal. I've never heard of this in the Pokemon world being illegal, so...
You haven't done this already, have you?
I mean, it's better to ask forgiveness than it is permission.
Is this why I haven't heard from Greg in a while?
Maybe.
Oh, Jesus Christ. You have to let him out, Tristan. That's not okay.
No. No, I like to... Look, when I am hunting Pokemon, I like to throw them out there, especially during the legendary fights. Just to see what happens.
Oh my god! I can't believe you're making fight giant firebirds.
Go, Greg! I can't do this again. Yes, you can. You're gonna fight that Articuno. You're gonna like it. I'm level 2. Yeah. Took us 2 years.
Up. Okay.
Yeah, it took him a few years actually. I kept throwing against Articuno.
Yes. Very difficult way to level.
It had to work eventually. It get him leveled at some point.
Questionable, but sure.
Yeah. I mean, we'll wait until. Well, look, we'll see if we start a Nuzlocke soon. So. What?
Oh no. That's not gonna go well for Greg.
Yeah. Or your thing. Anyway, that's it for our show. Tune in next time for another easy episode of Everything's Finally Ruined. See ya.